got to be a very, very, very minute amount that you're doing. Okay? All right. So moving up the chain on the medial side of the foot, the first metatarsal with the medial cuneiform is the next articulation. With the wedge, kind of showed how you can just start working your way up. Yeah, come a little forward here. You need the person to come a little more forward so they're on it, but I can get the first metatarsal right on the joint line, stabilize the cuneiform, and then you can do a plantar glide of the first metatarsal on the medial cuneiform. Okay, moving up still, and just because the plantar glides are easier with the wedge here, you're going to need to scoot forward. He needs to scoot forward more because I need to get his foot down on top of the wedge. This is a little close to the edge of the table too. I'd have him further on. I'd have the wedge further on the table at this point. But now the cuneiform on the navicular, I can find the navicular tuberosity with the wedge. Try to stabilize that. In fact, I might even have him lay a little bit on his this way so I can get him a little bit closer. Now, if I'm going to take him in this position, because I just want the wedge to make better contact with the navicular, that's why I have him in this position. How did my direction of force change? Is it straight down now? Right, I have to go with relation to his foot, so now my force needs to be more in this direction. So I can stabilize that and do a plantar glide that way. Okay? If I'm going to do a dorsal glide, I'll stabilize through the top, grab the cuneiform from below, and do a dorsal glide. Dorsal glides are generally better for dorsiflexion, plantar glides for plantar flexion for all these joints, through the foot. Okay? Navicular talus, same thing. Stabilizing the talus is not as, because if you just put pressure through the calcaneus, you can stabilize the talus, and now I can do a dorsal glide. Here's his navicular tuberosity. I just hook underneath that, and I can do a dorsal glide, or if I want to do a plantar glide, I can do a plantar glide of the navicular on the talus. And that's the entire first ray going all the way up. Okay? It doesn't change too much on the lateral side of the foot, okay? If I want to do plantar glides, fifth metatarsal on the cuboid, I find the end of the fifth metatarsal. I line up my wedge. Let me bring this a little bit further back onto the table. That's better. Because the wedge keeps wanting to dip so far forward. The wedge can stabilize the cuboid, and then we can go in and do our plantar glide of the fifth met on the cuboid. I can stabilize the cuboid from above and do a dorsal glide just right here. Okay, that's one way. That's one. Again, dorsal glides for dorsiflexion, plantar glides for plantar flexion. Okay. Okay. Tail joint. You can do cuboid calcaneal mobilizations as well. Probably don't need the wedge so much because you can stabilize the calcaneus on the table, and then just using the cuboid, getting on the cuboid lateral, you can do a plantar glide and then as well as a dorsal glide. This is a really tight one, but you can get. The other thing with the dorsal glides is all the padding underneath the foot you have to get through to get onto the surface as well. So he'll tell you I had to kind of dig my way in there to get up on it. Okay, so that's the forefoot and the midfoot impairments. We go through them. They're really good. The ones I spend the most time on, the first MTP, and then the subtalar joints and the talocrural joints. We spend a considerable amount of time doing. So let's go through some of that. As far as let's do the talocrural joint first. Okay, distal glides, posterior glides, better for dorsiflexion, right? You have a few options here. Let's scoot back a little bit. What I like to do is try to get the malleoli to be right on the edge of the table. What I do for myself, and this is the way I like to do it, I just grab from the bottom too, just as a stabilization on both the tibia and the fibula, okay? And then I horseshoe grip around the talus itself. Okay. Now, if I'm interested in dorsiflexion and he's limited here, what I do for myself, I use my thigh to help bring them up into the dorsiflexion range of motion I want. I get them at end range, I back off just a little bit, and then from this position here, I can just go in and do a posterior glide. I can do all my grades of motion there. If I'm going to do a grade 3, I'll take it into the plastic range and hold it, 10, 15 seconds, sometimes up to 30 seconds or more. Okay. Anterior glides, we're getting a little harder now. There is a couple of ways you can do it. You can try to take up the slack and through the calcaneus, try to lift anteriorly. It's a technique that can be used. The thing that we don't like about it is we're driving a force through the calcaneus, through the subtalar joint. So we're really compressing the subtalar joint in order to try to bring the talus up forward. I'm not keen on that. This is one that we already discussed. Isn't one we're going to do that often anyway. Another way to do the same mobilization is a relative anterior glide by stabilizing the talus and the calcaneus into the table. Now what I can do is I can take the tibia and the fibula and draw that, drill that posteriorly. And so now I got a relative anterior glide of the talus. The talus is coming anterior as I'm posteriorly gliding that. What you also saw is you can do a relative posterior glide by pulling forward. It's possible, but I would probably prefer you guys do the other way. All right. Traction. Oh, yes, we do. Traction I generally do seated of the tail accrual joint. I try to posteriorly and anteriorly, mostly anteriorly, grip the talus as best I can. I might bring them up into neutral, position range motion that I want, and then I'll do a pull this way. This is a good technique if, in particular, you're looking to do joint oscillations. But if I'm trying to do a mobilization, what's the problem with me as I'm pulling? You guys see it. I'm pulling his whole body with me. So I take up all the slack and it keeps coming. So what do we need to do to make this better? Stabilize it. So what can we use or do to do that?
Seatbelts.
Yeah, seatbelt. Strap it in. So I'll show you what I typically do when I'm doing I want this here too. So question, do I stabilize the one foot or both together? What do you guys think?
One.
Yeah, why stabilize the other one and have them feel like they're strapped down? Plus, I think I can get a better, if I have both, then the force is going to be like this, versus if I have it under one, I can get a more rounded force this way. Scoot back a little bit. That's better. You try to be as close to the edge of the table as possible, but try to get it as tight as you possibly can. How's it feeling there? Pretty snug. It does a better job than not having anything. And so then when we pull anteriorly, he's still getting a little bit there. There's probably a way I could get this a little bit tighter around him. But this is stabilizing the ankle so you can do a towel cruel distraction and get that strong mobilization and focus it mostly at the ankle there.
Could you have like a tech like
You can have a tech just hold it down too. I try to use these pads when I secure people down. It's just a little bit more comfortable. You may or may not have those in your gym. You may choose to use them or not use them. If I don't have this, I'd probably get a tighter. But again, so patient comfort versus what I'm trying to get. If I feel like what I'm getting is acceptable using this, then I might use this just because it's more comfortable for the patient. If I really feel like it's not getting what I need, then I need to make that change because I'm not doing the patient any service by that. You're smiling at me, Cameron.
I know. He's getting some good shots of you. That's
He's getting good shots of me.
It's like a.
Okay. The subtalar joint. What kind of mobilizations can be done at the subtalar joint? I put them up on the slide.
Lateral, medial
We
lateral.
can do medial lateral glides. We can